high in the misty mountains of northern Vietnam. Once a year, the people of Khau Vai gather not to sell goods, but to meet someone they lost long ago. Women wear vibrant brocade dresses, men play bamboo flutes that echo through the valleys. It feels magical, almost sacred. But look closer. Behind the smiles and songs are stories of missing girls, promises that turned into traps, a celebration that once honored love, now shadowed by staged romance and human trafficking. This isn't just a festival. It's a fragile line between tradition and exploitation. Number 1, origins and meaning. Have you ever imagined a place where love doesn't end? It just pauses. In Khau Vai, Ha Giang Province, one of the most culturally rich yet economically challenged regions of Vietnam, that a love story has survived the winds of time. Locals call it Cho Ting Khau Vai, the love market of Khau Vai. But don't let the word market fool you. This isn't a place to buy souvenirs or bargain over silk. No, this is a place to meet the one who got away. The story goes back over a century, maybe more. A young man from the GI ethnic group fell in love with a girl from the Nung people. Their love was fierce, but it wasn't allowed. Their families, divided by tribal customs and tradition, forbade the relationship. They were forced to part. Yet they made a promise. One night each year, no matter where life took them, they would return to Khau Vai, just to see each other again. And so the tradition began. In its purest form, the love market wasn't about finding someone new. It wasn't even about marriage. It was about memory, about honoring a love that couldn't be lived, but also couldn't be forgotten. And for generations it stayed that way. Couples, some married to other people, would meet in the night, exchange a song, a look, maybe a tear. Young people came to feel the excitement of possibility. Elders came to remember. It was sacred in its silence, a festival of longing, not noise. But beyond the romance, something deeper stirred beneath the surface. Khau Vai became a bridge between cultures. The Hmong, the Dao, the Thai, the Giai, all came together not just for love, but for language, trade, music, and food. In a region where entire valleys could go weeks without news from the outside world, the love market was more than a date. It was a lifeline. And woven into this gathering were rituals and beliefs. Shamans would perform blessing ceremonies. Families would offer gifts to the mountains and rivers, asking for love to find their sons and daughters. It wasn't just emotion, it was spirituality, a dance between human hearts and nature's soul. But as time moved forward, something changed. But let's pause here. Before we dive into what it has become, let's not forget what it was and still is to some. A symbol of resilience, a tribute to emotion that refused to fade, a ritual passed down like a family heirloom held not in gold, but in shared memory. Because there's something hauntingly beautiful about a tradition built not on possession, but on permission to feel. In a world that rushes to define love through contracts and timelines, Khau Vai whispers a different truth, that sometimes the most powerful love is the one you never fully had. And so, each spring under the first full moon of the lunar calendar, the village comes alive. Lanterns float, bamboo flutes echo off the cliffs. Old lovers stand face to face. Some speak, some don't, but they all remember. It's not perfect, it's not always happy, but it's real. And in that space between what is and what could have been, the heart of Khau Vai still beats. Number 2. Commercialization and cultural loss. As the years passed, the quiet poetry of Khau Vai began to echo with a different kind of sound, not the soft call of flutes, but the footsteps of tourists. It started with a few travelers, maybe a couple hundred curious souls who wandered north past the paths of Hanoi into the wild heart of Ha Giang. They came seeking stories, authenticity, and perhaps a glimpse of love at the Khau Vai love market. But word spreads fast, and so does demand. By the year 2025, more than 1 million visitors pour into Ha Giang each year, many of them drawn by photos of flower crowns, tribal skirts, and the promise of ethnic romance captured in travel magazines and vlogs. That's a 1,000-fold increase from just 2 decades ago when only a few thousand people visited annually. At first, the villagers welcomed it. After all, tourism meant income. It meant roads, electricity, cell towers. It meant the promise of a better life. But soon something shifted. The ancient rituals once whispered under the moonlight were now performed under spotlights. Old customs were rewritten into scripts. Elders were asked to dress up to reenact moments of their youth, but only in ways that entertained. Traditional songs were shortened and remixed into stage performances. The sacred became spectacle, and the love market. It turned into a show. Young girls in embroidered skirts sing for crowds of strangers, not for a long-lost love. Boys with handmade flutes now perform for tips, not for hearts. Entire corners of the market are set up for selfies, ethnic costumes for rent pose, with a local buy your love charm here. But here's the thing. When culture becomes a product, someone always pays the price. And more often than not, it's the locals. Many villagers admit they no longer feel a connection to the tradition. What once brought quiet emotion has become a noisy transaction. A festival meant to preserve memory now caters to memory cards. In interviews conducted by the Vietnam Center for Sustainable Tourism in early 2024, over 60% of local residents said they felt the love market had lost its original meaning. Some described it as performing a version of ourselves for others, while others simply said, "It's no longer ours." And then there are the children. Walk through the village during festival season, and you'll see them, little boys and girls no older than 7 or 8, selling bracelets, chasing tourists, or singing rehearsed lines in languages they barely understand. Some parents see it as opportunity, others as the only way to make ends meet. But what message are we sending when a child learns to perform before they learn to dream? Yes, tourism brings money. Yes, it can create jobs. But when a sacred tradition is reduced to a stage act and when identity is packaged into a price tag, we risk turning heritage into hustle. Even worse, we risk making the community strangers in their own story. It's like this: imagine a book you love, one your grandparents once read by firelight. Now imagine someone tearing out the pages, rewriting the ending, and handing it back to you as a souvenir. That's how many in Khau Vai feel. Number 3, human trafficking and forced marriage. But not all who come to the love market are looking for love. Some are looking for victims. What was once a gathering rooted in memory and tradition has over time become fertile ground for something darker and far more dangerous. According to a report published by Vietnam's Ministry of Public Security in early 2025, nearly 75% of all human trafficking victims in the country are women, and the vast majority of them come from ethnic minority communities in the northern provinces, places like Ha Giang and Khau Bang. And here's the harsh truth. Many of those disappearances start in places like Khau Vai. You see, traffickers are not always shadows in the dark. They can smile, they can flirt, they can pretend to be tourists or friendly strangers. And during festival season, when thousands of people flood the village, it becomes easier than ever to blend in. The setup is chillingly simple. A young woman, perhaps 16 or 17, attends the market. She's dressed in her finest, hopeful for a new beginning, or maybe just a bit of joy. A man approaches. He seems different. He listens. He flatters. He talks about a job in the city or a life abroad. Maybe a marriage, maybe freedom. And then she's gone. Sometimes it's days before anyone notices, sometimes weeks, and sometimes never. In a recent joint investigation by Blue Dragon Children's Foundation and the International Organization for Migration, it was found that over 2,000 women and girls were trafficked from northern Vietnam into China between 2020 and 2024 alone. Many of them sold into forced marriages, some as young as 13. And that's just what's reported. The traffickers know exactly what they're doing. They target the vulnerable girls from poor families, those who've dropped out of school, or those who simply want something more than the life they know. Khau Vai, with its mix of romance and anonymity, becomes the perfect stage. There's one case that still haunts the local social workers. A girl named Mai, Not her real name was 17. She met a man at the love market who said he was a teacher from Hanoi. He promised her a job in a bookstore, a new phone, a fresh start. Her family never saw her again. Months later, she was located in a rural province of southern China, forced into marriage with a man twice her age. Her words when she was rescued were quiet. "I thought I was going to build a new life. I didn't know I was being sold." Sadly, her story is not unique. This issue isn't just about illegal trafficking. It also includes what experts now call disguised commercial marriage, where women from ethnic groups are introduced to men from wealthier countries under the promise of legal marriage, only to be mistreated, exploited, or abandoned. Vietnamese authorities have reported a rising number of marriage arrangements with men from South Korea, China, and Taiwan that bypass proper legal procedures and put women at significant risk. In many of these cases, the women involved had little education, no legal support, and no way to escape once abroad. And yet these practices continue hidden behind the veil of culture and tourism. Because when tradition is romanticized and left unchecked, it becomes easy for predators to hide behind it. Easy to say, "She went willingly." Easy to call it love. But let's be clear. Love doesn't trick. Love doesn't trap. And love definitely doesn't sell. So the next time someone snaps a selfie at Khau Vai or buys a bracelet from a young girl with tired eyes, maybe ask, is she safe? Does she get to choose? Because beneath the beauty, there are bruises. And sometimes behind the music, there's a silence that screams. Number 4. Social pressure and gender inequality. Every spring when the Khau Vai love market comes alive, so do expectations, especially for young women. Expectations to dress beautifully, to sing sweetly, to smile brightly, and above all, to be chosen. Here's the uncomfortable truth in the eyes of many. These women aren't just attending the market, they're on display. "They told me to wear my best skirt," says Elle, a 19-year-old from the Dao ethnic group, "to put on lipstick, to make myself look pretty. They said maybe I'd meet someone good, but it felt like I was being judged, not loved." And she's not alone. Across many rural communities in northern Vietnam, the pressure on girls to marry young remains overwhelming. According to the Vietnam Women's Union's 2025 gender report, more than 42% of ethnic minority women marry before the age of 20, with some communities reporting cases as early as 15. Why? Because marriage is still seen as the primary path for a woman's worth. Girls are raised to become wives, to serve, to cook, to bear children. Education is often seen as optional, even a distraction, a luxury meant for sons, not daughters. In Ha Giang Province alone, dropout rates among ethnic minority girls remain alarmingly high. As of the end of 2024, over 25% of girls between the ages of 12 and 16 had left school prematurely. The reasons: household chores, family expectations, or simply to get married. But it's not just statistics, it's lived experience. Imagine growing up being told if you don't go to the love market, you'll stay single forever, or worse. If no one picks you, something must be wrong with you. This idea that your value depends on being chosen cuts deep. Many young women admit they attend the love market not out of desire, but out of fear. Fear of being labeled as unwanted. Fear of disappointing their parents. Fear of becoming a burden in a culture where unmarried women are seen as incomplete. And the psychological toll is real. Mental health workers in the region, including those from the NGO Hope for Her, have reported rising rates of anxiety and depression among teenage girls during and after the festival season. One counselor noted, "We've seen girls come in crying, saying they feel invisible, that they failed. Even though they're barely 16, it's a tragedy hidden behind traditional songs and colorful costumes. And what makes it harder is silence. Few speak up, because this is how it's always been. Because questioning tradition is seen as rebellion. Because shame, especially for women, is a powerful tool of control. But some voices are beginning to break through. Dr. Nguyen Thi Lan, a gender rights advocate and professor at the University of Social Sciences and Humanities, puts it bluntly. We must stop romanticizing traditions that hurt women. Culture should evolve, not cage. And she's right. It's not about disrespecting the love market. It's about making sure that love doesn't come at the cost of dignity. That tradition doesn't become a trap. Because when we teach girls that their worth is tied to marriage, we steal from them the right to dream bigger, to study, to travel, to choose freely, fully without shame. So the next time we celebrate the beauty of Khau Vai, let's ask, are we celebrating culture or are we clinging to a costume? Because true tradition should never require a woman to shrink herself just to fit inside it. Number 5. Mass tourism and its impacts. Over the last 10 years, Ha Giang Province has gone from being a quiet, untouched corner of northern Vietnam to one of the country's fastest-growing tourist hotspots. In 2024 alone, the region welcomed more than 1 million visitors, a number that was just over 30,000 back in the early 2000s. The Khau Vai Love Market, once a modest local tradition, is now featured in glossy travel blogs and Instagram reels. Tour buses line the narrow mountain roads, drones buzz above rice terraces, and the silence that once defined this land. It's been replaced by the sound of tour guides with microphones and souvenir vendors shouting over speakers. But beneath the excitement lies exhaustion. Locals say the trash piles up faster than it can be cleared. Plastic bottles in the streams, food containers in the forest, and paper lanterns, once a symbol of hope, now litter the fields like forgotten promises. Environmental researchers from the University of Natural Resources and Environment reported in early 2025 that festival periods generate up to 10 tons of waste in just 3 days, most of it non-biodegradable. That's 10,000 kilograms of pollution left behind in a place where waste disposal systems are still rudimentary at best. And it's not just the trash. Traffic congestion has become a daily struggle during peak season. Roads, designed for motorbikes, now choke with tourist vans and private cars. Noise pollution disrupts both wildlife and daily life. For elders used to the sound of wind and flute, the honk of a horn feels like an invasion. Then comes the cost you don't see in pictures, the cost of living. As demand for local food and services skyrockets, so do the prices. What used to be a bowl of noodles for 20,000 Vietnamese dong is now sold for triple. That locals earning traditional incomes can no longer afford what's grown in their own backyard. And as land gets bought up for hotels and homestays, many families are pushed further out, away from the spaces that once held their memories. Spaces where children played, where ancestors were honored, where traditions were born. In the words of one elder, "The land still has our footprints, but not our place." But perhaps the most painful cost of all is the erosion of dignity. It starts small, a tourist snapping a photo without asking, a woman's cultural dress turned into a rental costume, a sacred dance turned into entertainment, and suddenly, what was once intimate becomes a commodity. Cultural experts, including those from the Vietnam Cultural Heritage Association, have warned that if left unchecked, mass tourism could permanently damage the identity of ethnic communities. As one report put it, when heritage is turned into a stage, authenticity becomes the first casualty. So what do? Because tourism isn't the enemy. Carelessness is. Ignorance is a hunger for experience that forgets to ask, who pays for this moment? I'm enjoying. Khau Vai doesn't need to close its doors. It just needs visitors who open their hearts, not just their cameras. Because tradition is not a show, it's a responsibility. Number 6. Preservation and local efforts. Not all stories of Khau Vai are stories of loss. Some are stories of people fighting not with fists or force, but with knowledge, compassion, and the quiet power of choosing a better way. Because while tradition has been bruised by mass tourism, exploitation, and misrepresentation, it hasn't disappeared. It's still there under the noise, still breathing, still beating. And some people are working hard to keep it alive. Let's start with the local authorities. In 2023, the People's Committee of Ha Giang Province officially recognized the Khau Vai Love Market as an intangible cultural heritage of Vietnam. That title is more than just a certificate. It's a promise, a commitment to protect, preserve, and honor the essence of the festival, not just its appearance. One of the biggest steps, redesigning the market space itself. Now, instead of crowds spilling over into sacred land, or clogging narrow paths designated zones, have been created separate areas for performances, for trading, for cultural rituals. Local guides are trained to explain the meaning behind each song and gesture. Elders are given a voice in how their traditions are shared, not staged. But preservation isn't just about protecting spaces. It's about protecting people. That's where nonprofits and grassroots organizations come in, and they are doing the heavy lifting. Groups like Blue Dragon Care International and the Center for Social Initiatives Promotion have been quietly working in the region. Their focus: education, empowerment, and long-term safety. In 2024 alone, more than 5,000 ethnic minority women across northern Vietnam were enrolled in vocational training programs. These ranged from traditional weaving and herbal medicine to tourism management and online marketing skills that not only generate income, but restore agency. Because when a woman learns she can earn her own living, she's less likely to be tricked by the false promises of a trafficker. Many NGOs are also investing in community education, going village to village, school to school, teaching families how to identify the warning signs of human trafficking. They use real stories translated into local dialects with the help of respected community members. Because change doesn't come from outside, it comes from trust. And while some travelers still come just for a photo op, others, a growing number, actually are choosing a different path. These are the responsible tourists. They're booking with ethical tour companies, ones that partner directly with local families, that respect local customs, and that cap group sizes to minimize impact. Instead of flashy packages, they offer slower, more meaningful experiences, like spending a night in a homestay, learning how to dye fabric with indigo, or listening to an elder tell a story by the fire. In fact, according to the Vietnam Responsible Travel Alliance, by early 2025, over 30% of tourism operators in Ha Giang had adopted community-based or cultural respect certification standards. That may sound small, but it's growing, and growth in the right direction matters. Because preserving Khau Vai isn't about keeping it frozen in time. It's about letting it evolve in ways that respect its roots but meet the needs of the present. It's about giving the microphone back to the people who wrote the song in the first place. And it's about reminding both locals and visitors that culture is not a product. It's a living thing, one that deserves care, not consumption. So yes, there is damage, but there is also repair. There is hope in the hands that still weave brocade, in the teachers who bring girls back to school, in the elders who still sing, not for tourists, but for the sky, and in the quiet determination of a village that refuses to let its story be written by outsiders alone. What began as a sacred celebration of love, a reunion of hearts separated by fate, has slowly become a mirror, one that reflects both beauty and contradiction. On the surface, Khau Vai still dances with colors, songs, and tradition. But behind the music are stories of displacement, pressure, and loss. The love market, once a cultural symbol, now walks a fine line between preservation and performance, between romance and reality. Because the truth is, you can't sell love without risking its soul. We cannot use the name of culture to justify exploitation, and we cannot use tourism as an excuse to commercialize human connection, not without consequences. If we're not careful, what we call a love market may one day be remembered only as a market of pain. So let's do better. Travelers, respect what you witness. Ask before taking a photo. Refuse to treat people, especially children, as props. Policymakers, protect the women who carry these traditions, not just the traditions themselves. And to communities, speak up, share your voice, shape your own story. Because culture is not a costume, and tradition should never leave someone behind. If this story moved you, consider subscribing to NVL Travel Documentary for more human-centered journeys from around the world. Drop a comment, share your thoughts, or simply take a moment to reflect on the places we visit and the people who live there. Thank you for watching.